Welcome to the last trading day of June, last trading day of the second quarter and first half. JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Talk really quick about markets, some of the names I've traded, some names I'm looking at, go from there. But PCE data this morning, kind of the last piece of data. The preferred gauge of inflation for the Fed came in mostly in line. It also had spending coming out slightly lower than expected. Futures were already higher. SPY went all the way up to 549. Now we're just melting a little bit lower here. My hope, or I wouldn't say my hope or fear, is that maybe is this going to be a sell the good news event? I wouldn't say it's good news, right? But it's better than hotter than expected inflation. Yesterday, an extremely tight range on the SPY traded 546.37, 546.96, and 544. I'm trying to find the exact numbers here. I was doing this yesterday. 544.51. So a very tight trading range, which I guess it's a good thing, right? The sellers, you just churning through the buying. Sellers haven't been able to take control, and we're right near all-time highs. So we'll have to see how this all plays out today. Hopefully, some chops, some consolidation today, and then we can start looking for a move back into all-time highs next week. I posted a little tidbit, and you can see it in the chat room. Carl Q from CNBC posted a nice little tidbit of information that the first 15 days of July have been the best 2-week trading period for the S&P since 1928. I always like to have historical references, so I think it's kind of puts things into context. They always say sell in May, go away, and it's been a very good time frame so far for stocks. And then last but not least, here's the small caps. Small caps outperforming. Yesterday, the S&P was barely squeezed out a gain, and small caps were up 1%, back over the 50-day moving average on the IWM. If that gets going, maybe that's the next leg for markets into the summer. Would really love to see some of these small caps, well, at least the small cap index start to outperform, and then some of these names that really haven't taken part in the rally can start to go. So individual names. First, I'll just start with Roku. And yesterday, the Wedbush analyst came out just reiterating his outperform rating on the stock. If you don't know the history with Wedbush, Michael Pachter was a big bear on Netflix back in the day. I used to tweet with him on Twitter. He actually responded to me. I used to get so annoyed because I'd be in calls and he would put out some kind of bearish piece with some downgrade or whatever on Netflix. And this is, thousands of percent ago. So I used to get upset. And then he finally changed his tune. And he's kind of somewhat bullish on the sector, the name Netflix. But so we follow each other. So I tagged him on the tweet yesterday. He liked this the tweet. But either way, I agree with his outperform rating. I keep saying it's been left for dead. Like since it's disappointing. And when they weren't even disappointing earnings, there's concerns, competitive concerns, and growth concerns. The stock sold all the way off in the middle of February. Still hasn't been able to recoup any of that. And now we found finally a nice strong bounce over the 50-day moving average at 58. Once it's like a locomotive train and or a steam engine, it takes slow for it to get started. And I think once Roku starts to find some upside here and people start saying, oh wow, it's up 3% today, it's gonna start to take off. So really love Roku. The premiums, which were at historical lows, finally coming back to life. So I was able to lock some of my July 65s in for a little over 100%. The August 75s, I'll just hold on to those for now. But if if they get up to a double, I'll probably look to close some of those too, just to cover costs, so I can sleep a little easier at night, and it takes the emotion a little bit out of the trade. So that's Roku. Talk really quick about Chewy, and I've been doing my rants on Chewy since last week, and talked about the possible some catalysts, right? And first, if you took a look at Chewy, I just thought it's a great story after its back-to-back earnings reports, the $500 million stock buyback authorization, and it seems like it would be the start of it start to find its proper valuation, which I think is over $40. And then you have the backdrop of a possible GameStop raised $3 billion in cash. What are they going to do? Are they going to buy stake in Chewy? Then you have Ryan Cohen as part of that, and there's parallels there. And the meme crowd from GameStop coming over. And sure enough, what happens, Roaring Kitty, I was watching Chewy was down, it was like $28 or so, and all of a sudden you just saw it start to take off. I said, there's got to be something going on here. So I tried to scramble to get some of the strikes, but he comes out with that picture of a dog. And who knows if it's Chewy, who knows if it's Woof, who knows if it's Dogecoin, however you pronounce it. Or maybe it's nothing. Maybe he bought a pet yesterday, right? We don't know. But the market's about speculating. So if you can get ahead of some of the moves and positions that he posts, you can certainly make some money. Uh, all the way up to 39 bucks. There was one halt. Premiums have held up. So my 70 strikes are still looking nice. I locked some of the, I flipped to August 45. Still, just going to hold those strikes for now. Uh, Probably not going to add anything more. Also, the big move up in premiums at the start of the week was the July 30s. And I think there's January 37.50s were two big strikes that were purchased. So I wouldn't be surprised if he added those July 30s. They look like a dark pool trade because I tried to go back to see when they hit the tape, and all you see is the open interest go from 10,000 to 29,000 the next day, and I didn't see any big blocks go through. So I don't know if he did some kind of dark pool transaction, but then you see today the open interest went from 29 back down to 14. So someone locked in 15,000 of those July 30s. If he did, I mean, good for him. But anyway, that's Chewy. Not going to talk too much about that. I mean, you take a look at a long-term chart. Back in the middle of 2022, it was 50 bucks. Back in the summer of 2023, it was 40 bucks. So just some points of reference there. National Beverage, name I've traded back in the day. I was talking about the CEO, very interesting character with some press releases you would think were written from a science fiction novel or something. Just the words, like he went to the thesaurus and picked out some words that you would never use in a press release, but he does. Uh, good story. So they reported a nice beat and raise. They already are in a solid fundamental position. They issued a one-time divvy of, I think it was $3.25, which is why the strikes are a little odd on the options. So when you get the calls, they're not even numbers really, right? Uh, and then also, so their LaCroix brand it was a hot product back in the day, and it still is, but their growth is kind of slowed down. It's not as hot as it was, and there's a lot of competitive concerns. But then they came out with an energy drink, and that's really doing well. And you can see what's happening with Celsius. So I'm not saying people are going to go from Celsius into National Beverage, but the earnings certainly could provide a backdrop for the stock to head higher. Lock some of my strikes in. I'll probably look to close a few more at the open. I don't have too many, and then I'll just hold the rest for 60 bucks. Interesting story. If you look at the chart too, if it breaks 54, 54 was the highs back in 2021. So if it breaks through that, it's blue sky breakout. So that's National Beverage. Exact Science, not going to talk too much about Exact Science. Really like this one. Positive analyst notes this week. $70 price targets. The stock's sitting here at 44.49. It looks like it's bottoming. Hit the bottom middle of June. I think this one's going to take off to the races. Dell, just frustrating since that pop after Elon Musk announced that half their servers, XAI, are going to be provided by Dell. Excuse me, but it's holding the bottom support line, so that's a good sign. I keep moving my trend lines, so I'll post it in the chat room if yeah. So if anything, that's a good sign, and at some point it's gonna, I think 180, 200 bucks probably into the summer. That's Dell, HPQ. Unfortunately, HPQ lost its bull flag. So it broke underneath back-to-back red sessions. Actually, I think it might be 4 days to the downside. No, yeah, 4 days to the downside. But the last two have been big. Nearly 2% the day before, 1% yesterday. Still think this heads over 40 might need a catalyst to kick in the butt, or the overall sector starting to go with it. I'm trying to think what else I have here. Broadcom had some crazy put volume, like 40 or 50 million puts that have 0 day to expiration that expire today. So that's definitely one to watch. I don't know if someone's selling the premium. So that I'll be watching. I'm not, if the market for some reason has some kind of late day shenanigans, which it probably will at the end of the quarter, end of the half, end of the month. Typically there's rebalancing, and some ETFs get rebalanced too. So could be a name I'll be watching near the end of the day. Spotify, which I was watching, teased all the way up to 320 before reversing. That's a name I can be watching for some lottos. I think that's about it. Gilead still sitting here. I'm surprised this hasn't reversed back up to over 70 bucks. So maybe that's next week. VKTX. I mean, finally some signs yesterday after the positive Morgan Stanley note. Uh, but geez, it's been such a tease lately. Trying to add strikes on that. It seems like every time I think it's ready to break out, it fizzles. So I'll probably just wait on that one. Not much to add on turns either. Turns a decent day yesterday, back over 7, but still out of my uptrend channel. So maybe 750 or so, was up 6% yesterday. I think that's about it, folks. Let's have a great day. We have about 30 minutes to the open. I'll be back on later. Rock and roll.